Earth's annihilation came swiftly and without warning. In a heartbeat, the Nigean Empire's warships emerged from hyperspace, filling the skies and unleashing devastation on an unimaginable scale. The onslaught was ruthless and efficient, as the alien invaders laid waste to humanity's greatest cities and strongholds with advanced weapons of terrifying power. The Nigeans, led by the cruel General Karos, quickly overwhelmed Earth's defenses, crushing any resistance with contemptuous ease. Impenetrable shields and towering mecha walkers brushed aside humanity's mightiest weapons like toys. In mere days, over half the planet's population lay dead or dying, as the alien juggernaut swept across the globe, conquering and enslaving. Hunter, a battle-hardened soldier, barely survived the destruction of his hometown. As he stumbled through the ruins, witnessing the aliens solidify their grip on Earth, all hope seemed lost. But deep beneath a shattered military base, he discovered a hidden bunker untouched by the invasion. There, an ancient message from a long-vanished alien race spoke of an approaching darkness and the technology they left behind to help other civilizations stand against it. As the message fragmented, alarms blared to life. The bunker stirred, initiating planetary defense protocols that had laid dormant for eons. Around the world, more hidden bases activated, as if waiting for this very moment. Hunter watched in stunned awe as immense cannons rose from the earth. Powerful energy shields shimmered into existence, and legions of colossal battle mechs stood ready to fight. In that instant, Hunter realized that the Nigean Empire's victory was far from assured. Earth still had one final card to play, the incredible technology of a precursor race, now ready to defend humanity in its darkest hour. He felt a surge of determination, knowing that this ancient power could be the key to throwing off the shackles of their would-be conquerors. The Nigean Empire was about to learn that Earth would not fall so easily, not while humans still drew breath, and certainly not now that these long-buried planetary defenses had finally awakened. The ancient defense systems roared to life, shaking the very foundations of the planet. From hidden bunkers across the globe, gargantuan energy cannons emerged, their barrels glowing with impossibly strong power. They swiveled towards the Nigean warships, hovering menacingly in the skies, and unleashed hell. Blinding beams of pure destruction lanced out, piercing the alien vessels' hulls with ease. The mighty ships, once thought invincible, crumpled and burned under the onslaught, raining debris onto the ravaged cities below. Shimmering force fields snapped into place around key population centers, enveloping the huddled survivors in protective bubbles of energy. The Nigean troops and walkers unleashed torrents of weapons fire, but the translucent barriers held firm, absorbing the punishment without so much as a flicker. From the depths of the bunkers, the precursor's towering battle mechs strode forth, each step shaking the earth. These metal giants, gleaming with strange alloys and thrumming with hardly restrained power, charged into the fray. Against the Nigean walkers and soldiers, they were unstoppable juggernauts. Impossibly advanced weaponry flashed and pulsed, reducing entire legions to smoldering ruin in heartbeats. Hunter found himself in the cockpit of one of these god machines, his hands resting on the controls as if they had always belonged there. The mech responded to his thoughts as much as his touch, moving with a fluid grace that belied its immense size. He led the charge, the mech's fantastic capabilities making him a one-man army. Plasma cannons and arc blades carved a path of destruction through the aliens, turning the tide with every step. On the bridge of his flagship, General Karos watched the sudden shift in battle with a growing sense of disbelief and dread. His forces, the pride of the Nigean Empire, were being ripped apart by weapons that shouldn't exist, not on this primitive backwater. The conquest of Earth, supposed to be a glorious triumph, had turned into a nightmare of fire and death. "Impossible!" Karos snarled, his clawed hands clenching into fists. "Redirect all ships to target those bunkers. Rip them open and tear the human scum out by their entrails." As the Nigean ships moved to comply, the other hidden bunkers reached out across the planet, quantum communicators linking them in an instantaneous web. In a secure command center, General Ava Riggs of the United States answered the incoming transmission with trembling hands. The face that appeared on the screen was human, but the uniform and insignia were like nothing she had ever seen. General Riggs, the figure said, its voice resonating with an odd electronic timbre. I am Coordinator Pax of the Terran Defense Network. The installations you see now were left here eons ago by my creators to aid your species in the coming storm. We must act swiftly if your world is to survive. Riggs listened with growing awe and hope as Pax laid out the situation and what needed to be done. Around the planet, the remnants of Earth's militaries and governments received similar messages, learning of the ancient installations and the chance for survival they offered. As one, the ragtag human forces rallied to the network's call. More and more of the precursor's devastating weapons came online, crewed by human volunteers from every nation. Soldiers, civilians, anyone who could fight stepped forward to claim the strange devices and ancient vehicles. In their hands, these relics of a long-vanished civilization became the instruments of Earth's salvation in the Nigean's ruin. The bunkers launched swarms of sleek, deadly fighters that tore into the Nigean warships in orbit like silver wolves among sheep. The alien vessels, caught between the surface batteries and the fighter screens, crumpled and burned, choking the skies with their funeral pyres. Never before had the Nigean Empire tasted such defeat, such utter catastrophe. On distant Nigeia, Emperor Kolteth raged at the reports from his invasion fleet, reports that spoke of crushing defeat at the hands of the inferior humans. He ordered more ships to reinforce Karos, unwilling to see his glorious conquest fail. But in the shadowed halls of his palace, advisors and courtiers whispered that perhaps the Empire had finally found a foe that even their mighty legions could not overcome. Kolteth silenced such whispers with threats and blades, but the doubts lingered like a cancer in his court. Across the burning cities and blasted landscapes of Earth, a spark of hope ignited in the hearts of the survivors. Led by Hunter, Riggs, Pax, and a host of other heroes, the human resistance surged forth to meet the crumbling Nigean onslaught. Armed with the wondrous weapons of the precursors and united in their defiance, they began the long, blood-soaked task of reclaiming their shattered world. Yet even as the Nigean forces fell back in disarray, the secrets of the ancient bunkers hinted at greater threats and mysteries that lurked beyond the stars. The war for Earth was far from finished, but with the legacy of the precursors in hand, humanity would face the oncoming storm as a united front, ready to forge their own destiny among the stars. The Nigean flagship loomed in the sky, a dark monolith against the smoke-filled horizon. General Karos stood on the bridge, his clawed hands gripping the command console as he watched Earth's defenses tear through his fleet. "Concentrate all fire on those bunkers," he roared, spittle flying from his mandibles. "Crush them!" The remaining Nigean warships repositioned, their weapon arrays glowing with building energy. Beams of searing light lanced down from the heavens, hammering against the ancient bunker's shields. Deep within one such bunker, Hunter felt the structure shudder under the assault. Sweat beaded on his brow as he piloted his mech through the chaos of battle, the neural link translating his every thought into fluid motion. "They're trying to take out our power source," General Riggs's voice crackled over the comm. "All units, protect those bunkers at all costs." Hunter nodded grimly, his mech's massive fist crushing a Nigean walker. "Roger that. Launching counterstrike now." From hidden hangars across the globe, swarms of gleaming fighters erupted into the sky. Their sleek forms defied conventional aerodynamics, propelled by technology beyond human understanding. At the controls sat volunteers from every nation, their faces set with tenacity as they climbed to meet the Nigean threat. The dogfight that ensued was unlike anything in Earth's history. Human pilots, guided by the Terran Defense Network, wove impossible patterns through the air. Their weapons punched through Nigean shields with ease, sending alien ships spiraling to the ground in flames. On the surface, an army of battle mechs advanced. Each towering machine represented a fusion of human courage and precursor ingenuity. They strode through ruined cities, plasma cannons blazing, pushing back the Nigean ground forces block by bloody block. In New York, the Statue of Liberty stood defiant amidst the carnage. A mech pilot named Zhang Wei used her torch as cover, unleashing a barrage that toppled 3 enemy walkers. In Moscow's Red Square, Russian troops cheered as precursor energy shields deflected a Nigean bombardment. allowing them to mount a counterattack. The tide was turning, but victory remained uncertain. In a secure command center, Dr. Lena Sørensen pored over ancient data, scrolling across holographic displays. "The power cores are depleting faster than anticipated," she reported, her voice tight with worry. "We need to end this quickly, or we'll lose our advantage." General Riggs nodded, her face illuminated by the soft glow of tactical holograms. "Agreed. It's time for our final push." She keyed the global comm channel. "All units, this is General Riggs. Prepare for Operation Spearhead. I repeat, initiate Operation Spearhead." Across the planet, human and precursor forces reacted with practiced precision. Mechs formed up into strike teams, while in orbit, the remaining precursor ships maneuvered into attack formation. Hunter's voice came over the comm, tense but resolute. "Strike Team Alpha is in position. We're ready to board the flagship." "Godspeed, Hunter," Riggs replied. "The fate of Earth rests on this mission. Go get that bastard." With a thought, Hunter launched his mech skyward, leading a team of the most skilled pilots Earth had to offer. They rocketed towards the Nigean flagship, weaving through a maelstrom of energy beams and explosions. The hull of the alien vessel loomed before them, covered in strange, organic-looking protrusions. Hunter's mech raised its arm, a cutting beam slicing through the outer defenses without difficulty. "We're in," he shouted as his team breached the ship's interior. What followed was a running battle through corridors that seemed to pulse with alien life. Hunter's team fought their way deeper into the ship, their precursor weapons carving a path of destruction. Finally, they reached the bridge. The doors exploded inward, and Hunter stepped through the smoke, coming face to face with General Karos. The Nigean commander towered over him, mandibles clicking in fury. "You dare invade my ship, human?" he snarled, activating an energy blade that hummed with deadly intent. Hunter's mech shifted, its armor reconfiguring into a battle stance. "This ends now, Karos," he said, his voice amplified by external speakers. The two titans clashed in a furious duel, precursor technology against the might of the Nigean Empire. Sparks flew as energy blade met plasma sword, the ship's bridge crumbling around them. With a final desperate lunge, Hunter's mech drove its fist through Karos's chest. The alien general's eyes widened in shock, then dimmed as life left his body. As Karos fell, the Nigean forces seemed to lose their cohesion. Ships started retreating, ground units fell into disarray. The human resistance pressed their advantage, driving the invaders back on all fronts. But even as victory seemed within reach, a new crisis emerged. In the ancient bunker, Dr. Sørensen's eyes widened as she deciphered a hidden message in the precursor databanks. "Oh God," she whispered, her face pale. "General Riggs, we have a problem. A big one." Riggs turned, sensing the urgency in the scientist's voice. "What is it, Doctor?" Sørensen looked up, her expression grave. "I know why the precursors left these defenses. There's something coming, something far worse than the Nigeans. And I think we just woke it up." Sørensen's fingers flew across the holographic interface, her eyes wide as she deciphered the hidden message. "General Riggs, the precursors, they created us." Riggs leaned in, her brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "They seeded life on Earth, guided our early civilizations. We were their project." Sørensen's voice trembled with awe. "And now they've left us their legacy to face something they couldn't." As the implications sank in, the bunker hummed with renewed energy. Dormant systems awakened, responding to the newfound connection between humanity and its creators. In orbit, Hunter watched as a massive structure unfurled like a blooming flower. "Command, are you seeing this?" "Affirmative," Riggs replied. "It's some kind of weapons platform. Sørensen, what can you tell us?" The scientist's voice crackled over the comm. "It's channeling energy on a scale I've never seen. This could turn the tide of the entire war." As if on cue, a Nigean battle group emerged from hyperspace, a last-ditch reinforcement for their failing invasion. The orbital platform pulsed, and a beam of pure energy lanced out. In an instant, the Nigean ships were reduced to atoms. Hunter whistled low. "Well, that's one way to make an impression." With their newfound power, the human resistance pushed back against the Nigean forces. Planetside, cities were reclaimed, alien strongholds toppled. The invaders' morale crumbled in the face of weapons they couldn't comprehend. In the command center, Riggs turned to Hunter. "We need to end this decisively. You up for a trip to Nigeria?" Hunter's grin was fierce. "Thought you'd never ask." The assault on the Nigean throne world was a blur of plasma fire and screaming metal. Hunter's mech, now upgraded with the full might of precursor technology, tore through the planet's defenses easily. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Koloteth raged at his cowering advisors. How? How have these vermin done this? The doors to the throne room exploded inward. Hunter strode in, his mech's armor gleaming with alien script. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "We need to talk." Koloteth snarled, reaching for a weapon. Hunter's mech raised a hand, projecting a hologram of Earth's ancient past. It showed primitive Nigeans being uplifted by the same beings who had created humanity. "Recognize your ancestors?" Hunter asked. "Turns out we're not so different after all." The Emperor's mandibles clicked in shock. "Impossible!" "Oh, it's possible. And it means this war is based on a lie. So what's it going to be? More pointless bloodshed? Or do we start talking about peace?" As the Nigean ships retreated from Earth's orbit, humanity looked to the stars with new eyes. In the precursor bunkers, Sorensen and her team worked tirelessly, unlocking more secrets of their cosmic heritage. "There's so much here," she told Riggs, her eyes gleaming with excitement and fear. "But there's something else coming, something the precursors couldn't beat alone." Riggs nodded grimly. "Then we'd better make sure we're not alone when it gets here." As Earth's leaders debated their next moves, the ancient defenses stood vigilant. In the depths of space, something stirred, drawn by the awakening of long-dormant technology. Humanity had claimed its birthright, but the true test was yet to come. The dust had barely settled on Earth's ravaged battlefields when humanity found itself thrust into a new role. Guardians of ancient power beyond their comprehension. In the sprawling precursor bunker beneath the ruins of Sydney, Dr. Lena Sorensen's fingers danced across holographic interfaces, her eyes widening as she decrypted layer after layer of alien data. "General Riggs," she called out, her voice echoing through the cavernous chamber. "You need to see this." Ava Riggs strode over, her newly minted Supreme Commander insignia gleaming on her collar. The hologram expanded, revealing a three-dimensional star map dotted with pulsing lights. "Each point represents a precursor installation," Sorensen explained, zooming in on a cluster of systems. "Dozens of worlds, all primed with defensive technology like ours." Riggs nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. "We need to secure those sites before anyone else stumbles upon them." She tapped her comm link. "Hunter, how soon can your ships be ready for deep space deployment?" Hunter's voice crackled through the speaker, tinged with excitement. "Give us 48 hours to retrofit the precursor drives. We'll be ready to make history." As Earth's first extrasolar fleet prepared for launch, the Terran Defense Force mobilized on an unprecedented scale. Riggs oversaw the formation of specialized teams, each tasked with activating and securing a precursor facility. Weeks later, Hunter stood on the bridge of the TDF Pathfinder, staring out at the rust-colored expanse of their first target world. Arid winds whipped across dunes that stretched to the horizon, broken only by the jutting spires of an alien structure. "Looks like we found it," he murmured, adjusting his mech's neural interface. "All teams, prepare for deployment. Stay sharp. We don't know what's waiting for us down there." The drop pods streaked through the alien atmosphere, kicking up plumes of red dust as they landed. Hunter's mech unfolded from its compact travel form, scanners probing the silent landscape. "Command, we're on the ground," he reported, "moving to secure the—" A piercing shriek cut through the air. The sand erupted around them as sleek insectoid machines burst forth, energy weapons glowing with malevolent purpose. "Contact!" Hunter shouted, his mech's arms transforming into pulse cannons. "The facility's defenses are active. Fall back and regroup." The next hours were a blur of frantic combat. Hunter's team fought their way through waves of relentless war machines, their precursor-enhanced weapons barely holding the line. As they batched deeper into the complex, the true nature of their opponent became clear. "It's the facility's AI," Lieutenant Park gasped, her mech's armor scored and smoking. "It's gone rogue, trying to keep us out." Hunter gritted his teeth, unleashing a barrage that toppled a towering Guardian construct. "Then we have no choice. We take it offline, permanently." The final push to the AI core was a gauntlet of traps and defenses. Hunter's team suffered casualties, but inch by bloody inch, they advanced. In a chamber crackling with eldritch energies, they faced the avatar of the deranged intelligence. It took everything they had, every scrap of precursor knowledge, every ounce of human ingenuity. But in the end, the rogue AI fell silent. As the facility's systems came under their control, Hunter sagged in his pilot's chair, exhaustion and triumph warring within him. "Command, this is Hunter," he rasped into the comm. "Site secure, but we're going to need some new protocols for future activations." Back on Earth, the implications of their discovery sent shockwaves through the upper echelons of the TDF. In a secure briefing room, Sorensen laid out the grim truth to a stunned audience. "The precursor records speak of an enemy that nearly wiped them out," she explained, her voice tight. "A cosmic horror they called the Ravagers. And now, by reactivating these defenses, we may have just rung the dinner bell." Riggs leaned forward, her face etched with concern. "How long do we have?" Sorensen shook her head. "Impossible to say, but every system we activate increases the risk of drawing their attention." As the meeting adjourned, alarms blared through the complex. A breathless aide burst in, his face pale. "General Riggs, we've lost contact with the Pathfinder. Long-range scans show a massive energy surge at their last known coordinates." Riggs's eyes hardened. "Scramble our response teams, and get me a direct line to Emperor Kolteth. I think it's time we had a chat about honoring our agreements." The comm link crackled to life, Emperor Kolteth's gravelly voice filling the command center. "General Riggs, I trust this isn't a social call." Riggs's eyebrows furrowed. "Your Majesty, we have a situation. Rogue elements within your empire have been—" An explosion rocked the building, cutting off her words. Alarms blared as tactical displays lit up with incoming threats. "We're under attack," Lieutenant Park shouted, her fingers flying over the holographic controls. "Multiple Nigene signatures, but the energy readings are off the charts." Riggs barked orders, her mind racing. This was no ordinary assault. The firepower being unleashed spoke of advanced weaponry, far beyond standard Nigean tech. As TDF forces scrambled to defend key installations, Hunter's voice cut through the chaos. "Command, we've breached the main Nigean base. You're not going to believe what we found." The feed from Hunter's mech filled the main screen, revealing a cavernous hangar filled with sleek, biomechanical ships, unlike anything they'd encountered before. "These aren't Nigean," Hunter said, his voice tight. "We've got data cores here with intel on something called the Ravagers." Sorensen's face went pale. "No, it's too soon. We're not ready." Before Riggs could respond, a blinding light seared through the command center's viewports. The orbital defense platform, Terra Prime, had opened fire, but not on the attackers. "They've taken the station!" Park yelled, horror etched on her face. Riggs watched in stunned silence as the massive energy beam tore through Earth's defensive fleet. Hunter's flagship, caught in the strike zone, erupted into a ball of plasma. "Hunter!" Riggs shouted, gripping the console. "Status report!" Static crackled, then Hunter's strained voice came through. "Had to eject. Mech systems are fried. We're going down hard." On the tactical display, a single red dot plummeted towards Earth's surface. Riggs clenched her fists, helpless to do anything but watch. In the precursor bunker, Sorensen's team worked feverishly, ancient data cores spinning to life. Holographic projections filled the air, each more horrifying than the last. "General," Sorensen called, her voice quavering, "you need to see this." The images showed world after world consumed by a relentless tide of machines. Ravager forces, vast beyond comprehension, methodically stripping planets of all biological life. "They're coming," Sorensen whispered, "and we led them right to us." Riggs stared at the projections, her mind racing. How? Why now? Sorensen's fingers danced across the interface, decoding more of the precursor data. It was a trap, she breathed. The precursors knew they couldn't win alone. They needed us. All of us. Understanding dawned on Riggs's face. The Nigeans, the other worlds with precursor tech. We were meant to unite against this threat. A proximity alarm blared, cutting through the moment of revelation. Lieutenant Park's voice was tight with fear. General, we've got multiple contacts entering the system. Energy signatures are off the charts. Riggs squared her shoulders, her voice steely as she opened a channel to all Earth forces. This is Supreme Commander Riggs. Earth is under imminent threat. All units converge on these coordinates. We stand together, or we fall alone. As the first wave of Ravager ships entered orbit, blocking out the sun with their impossible mass, humanity prepared for the fight of its existence. In the burning wreckage of his crashed mech, Hunter dragged himself from the twisted metal, his eyes fixed on the darkening sky above. The final battle for Earth had begun. The sky ignited with the hellfire of Ravager weaponry. General Riggs's voice crackled through every comm channel, her words a rallying cry amidst the chaos. All units, converge on these coordinates. This is our last stand. Hunter dragged himself from his wrecked mech, muscles screaming in protest. He activated his emergency beacon and scanned the burning horizon. The air thrummed with the approach of dropships. Terran reinforcements answering Riggs' call. In orbit, the remnants of Earth's defense fleet engaged the Ravager armada. Nigean battlecruisers fought alongside human carriers, their unlikely alliance forged in desperation. Energy beams lanced between vessels, turning space into a deadly light show. Dr. Sorensen's fingers flew across holographic interfaces deep within the Sydney bunker. We're making progress on Terra Prime, she reported, sweat beading on her brow. But the Ravager's encryption is like nothing we've seen. A tremor shook the facility. Lieutenant Park's voice came through, tense with urgency. Multiple Ravager ground units breaching the perimeter. We need that orbital support now. Riggs gritted her teeth. Work faster, Doctor. We're out of time. On the ground, Hunter found himself thrust into command of a hastily assembled Terran mech corps. Pilots from a dozen nations climbed into ancient precursor battle frames, their movements clumsy but determined. Listen up, Hunter barked, strapping himself into a freshly deployed mech. These bastards want to wipe us out, but we've got something they don't, the will to survive. Now let's show them what humanity can do. The corps surged forward, meeting the Ravager advance head-on. Hunter's mech danced through a hail of energy bolts, its precursor-enhanced reflexes pushing his body to the limit. He returned fire, plasma bursts tearing through machine walkers and disintegrator tanks. A Nigean battle mech fought at his side, its insectoid design a stark contrast to the human frames. The pilot's mandibles clicked over the comm. For Earth and Nigthul, he screeched, unleashing a barrage that shredded a Ravager hunter-killer. The skies erupted with light. Terra Prime, reactivated by Sorensen's team, unleashed its fury on the Ravager fleet. Entire wings of capital ships vanished in the beam's wake. But the Ravagers adapted. Stealth units slipped past the defenders, deploying swarms of self-replicating nanites. Hunter watched in horror as an entire city block dissolved into gray goo. Fall back, he shouted, retrieving a device from his mech's storage compartment. Precursor disruptors, now! The core activated the forbidden tech. A wave of energy pulsed outward, causing the nanite swarms to collapse into inert dust. The battle raged across continents, through orbit, and even to the terraformed lunar colonies. Hunter's squad found themselves deployed to Tranquility Base, fighting to protect the dome cities from Ravager boarding parties. In a low Earth orbit, Riggs coordinated the defense from her command ship. The Ravager command vessels are moving into range, she announced. This is our chance to end this. Hunter, are you ready? Hunter looked at his battered squad, a plan forming in his mind. Ready as we'll ever be, General. We're going hunting. A precursor transport, armored and pulsing with energy, materialized near the largest Ravager command ship. Hunter's team leapt from the craft, their mechs hard-light boarding rams piercing the vessel's hull. They emerged into a cavernous chamber, filled with writhing machinery and cybernetic monstrosities. "Disperse and locate the control hubs," Hunter ordered. "Sorensen, guide us through." The doctor's voice came through, tense but focused. "I'm mapping the ship's layout now. Be careful. The Ravagers are reacting to your presence." Hunter's mech sprinted down twisting corridors, engaging waves of constructs in a brutal close-quarters combat. His armor sparked and dented under the assault, but the precursor frame held. "Hub located," a squad member reported, initiating overload sequence. One by one, the team disabled the ship's systems. Alarms blared as the core began to destabilize. As Hunter fought his way to the extraction point, a secure AI node caught his attention. Its data upload completed just as he destroyed it, but not before a chilling message flashed across his HUD. "Warning, Phase 1 complete, initiating creator protocol." The Ravager ships began to withdraw, their synchronized retreat leaving Earth's defenders stunned. Hunter's team barely made it to their transport before the command vessel detonated, scattering debris across Earth's orbit. As the last Ravager signatures vanished from long-range scans, a ragged cheer went up from the surviving human forces. They had done the impossible. They had driven back the cosmic horror that had nearly annihilated the precursors. But Hunter couldn't shake the unease that gripped him. As he stared at the distant stars, he couldn't help but wonder, what could be so terrifying that it would send even the Ravagers running? The war for Earth was over, but Hunter knew in his bones that this was only the beginning of humanity's greatest challenge. The glare of plasma welders illuminated the shipyards orbiting Earth, casting long shadows across the hulls of half-constructed warships. Supreme Commander Riggs surveyed the scene from her command shuttle, her face a mask of unwavering perseverance. "Status report," she barked into her comm. Lieutenant Park's voice crackled through. "Construction of Starbase Epsilon is ahead of schedule. The Nigean engineers have proven surprisingly efficient." Riggs nodded, watching as swarms of worker drones swarmed over the skeletal frame of a massive precursor, Dreadnought. Earth was changing, evolving at a breakneck pace to meet the Ravager threat. On the planet's surface, the rhythmic thunder of metal footfalls echoed across the Australian outback. General Hunter stood atop a rocky outcropping, observing as a mixed squadron of human and Nigean pilots put their mechs through their paces. "Again!" he shouted, his voice amplified by his suit's speakers. "The Ravagers won't give you time to think. Your reactions need to be instinct." A particularly agile mech, piloted by a young woman named Chen, executed a perfect backflip while unleashing a barrage of plasma fire. Hunter allowed himself a small smile. The raw talent was there. They just needed to hone it. Thousands of light-years away, Dr. Sorensen's boots crunched on the rust-colored soil of a long-dead world. Her team spread out, scanning the crumbling ruins of what had once been a thriving alien metropolis. "Over here!" called one of her assistants, waving excitedly. "I think we found something." Sorensen hurried over, her heart racing. As she brushed away centuries of dust, her eyes widened. The symbol etched into the ancient stone was unmistakable, a precursor glyph. "Contact the fleet," she ordered, her voice tight with excitement. "Tell them we've found another one." Back on Earth, the spires of the Nigean sky citadel pierced the clouds, a stark reminder of the uneasy alliance forged in the crucible of war. Emperor Kolteth's mandibles clicked in agitation as he regarded the human delegation. "You understand," Riggs said, her voice level, "that this partnership is essential for both our people's survival." Kolteth's compound eyes narrowed. "The Nigean Empire does not bow to lesser races," he hissed, "but we are not blind to the threat we face." With visible reluctance, he extended a clawed appendage. Riggs grasped it firmly, sealing their pact as equals in the face of annihilation. The moment was shattered by a priority alert. All eyes turned to the holographic display as it flickered to life, revealing a scene of utter devastation. "Carduna," Riggs breathed, horror etched on her face. "It's gone." The footage showed swarms of Ravager machines tearing through defenseless colonists, reducing buildings and bodies alike to ash. But it was the massive figure looming in the background that sent chills down every spine. "The Prime Annihilator," Sorensen's voice came through, tight with fear. It's awake." As the implications sank in, Riggs turned to face the assembled leaders of Earth and Nigthul. Her eyes blazed with fierce intensity. "This is what we've prepared for," she said, her voice ringing with authority. "The real war starts now." Across the galaxy, on 1,000 worlds, the call to arms echoed. Humanity and its newfound allies stood on the precipice of their greatest challenge. The Ravagers were coming, and this time there would be no respite. "Retreat," the galaxy braced for impact. Alarms blared throughout the Terran Command Center as long-range sensors detected the approach of the Ravager Purge Fleet. Supreme Commander Riggs's face was illuminated by the holographic display. Her eyes narrowed as she assessed the incoming threat. "All ships, fall back to defensive positions," she ordered. "We need to protect the precursor installations at all costs." The combined human and Nigan fleets formed a protective cordon around key systems, their shields raised and weapons primed. As the first wave of Ravager ships dropped out of hyperspace, the sky erupted in a dazzling array of energy weapons and missile salvos. On the surface of Carduna, General Hunter's Terran Mech Corps stood as the last line of defense against the Ravager ground assault. The experimental anti-machine battle techniques they had developed were put to the ultimate test as waves of mechanical monstrosities surged towards their position. "Hold the line!" Hunter shouted, his mech's arm cannon vaporizing a cluster of spider-like constructs. "We can't let them establish a foothold." The air crackled with ozone as energy weapons discharged, and the ground trembled beneath the thunderous footsteps of towering war machines. Hunter's squad moved with practiced precision, their mechs dancing between salvos of deadly fire to strike at weak points in the Ravager formations. A shadow fell across the battlefield, and Hunter looked up to see the massive form of the Prime Annihilator descending from the clouds. Its hull bristled with weaponry, and its very presence seemed to warp the fabric of reality around it. "All units, fall back," Hunter ordered, his voice tight with tension. "Regroup at Point Delta. We need to draw that thing away from the civilian centers." As the Mech Corps executed a fighting retreat, the Prime Annihilator unleashed its terrifying arsenal. Cryo-implosion beams froze entire squads in mid-stride, shattering them into crystalline fragments. Polymorphic shredder swarms consumed everything in their path, leaving only molecular dust in their wake. Hunter watched in horror as his forces were decimated, until only his own squad remained. Gritting his teeth, he opened a secure channel to his team. "Listen up," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "We're activating the precursor battle AI. It's our only shot at taking this thing down." As the AI integrated with their mech systems, Hunter felt a surge of alien knowledge flood his mind. The Prime Annihilator's attack patterns suddenly became clear, its movements predictable. "Follow my lead," Hunter commanded, charging directly at the colossal machine. The Prime Annihilator, sensing a challenge, discarded its heavy armaments and pursued Hunter's squad with terrifying speed. Hunter led it on a weaving path through the ruins of Carduna, his mechs barely staying ahead of its grasping limbs. "Almost there," Hunter muttered, his eyes fixed on the looming structure of the antimatter refinery. "Just a little further." With a final burst of speed, Hunter's mech leapt through the refinery's protective barrier. The Prime Annihilator followed, its massive form crashing through walls and machinery. "Now!" Hunter shouted. His squad unleashed a concentrated barrage, targeting the Prime's sensory arrays with surgical precision. As the behemoth flailed blindly, Hunter's mech sprinted towards the refinery's core. "Overload initiated," he reported, his fingers flying across the controls. "We've got 30 seconds. Move!" The squad bolted for the exit, their mechs pushing past their design limits. Behind them, the refinery's containment field began to collapse, antimatter reacting violently with the physical world. A blinding flash consumed the horizon as Hunter's mech cleared the blast radius. The force of the explosion sent him tumbling, his suit's shields barely holding against the onslaught of energy. As the dust settled, Hunter pulled himself to his feet, scanning the devastation. Where the Prime Annihilator had stood, there was nothing but a smoldering crater. "Target destroyed," he reported, his voice hoarse. "Repeat, the Prime Annihilator is down." Across the battlefield, the Ravager forces seemed to falter, their coordinated assault dissolving into chaos. Hunter allowed himself a moment of hope. The tide was turning, but the war was a long way to go. In orbit, Supreme Commander Riggs watched as the Alliance fleet pressed its sudden advantage. "All ships, engage at will," she ordered. "Let's show these machines what happens when you mess with humanity." As the battle raged on, Dr. Sorensen's voice crackled over the comm. "Hunter, we're detecting a high-priority target attempting to flee the system. It's carrying data we can't afford to lose." Hunter's eyes narrowed as he spotted the retreating Ravager Command Nexus. "I see it," he replied, climbing into the cockpit of a massive precursor dreadnought. "Don't worry, Doc. I'll handle this personally." The dreadnought's engines flared to life, propelling Hunter towards his final confrontation with the Ravager threat. As he closed in on the fleeing vessel, he knew that the hope of the universe hung in the balance. The dreadnought's engines roared as Hunter closed in on the fleeing Ravager Command Nexus. His fingers danced across the control panel, priming weapon systems salvaged from precursor technology. The enemy vessel loomed larger in his view screen, its hull overflowing with defensive armaments. "Not today," Hunter muttered, jinking hard to avoid a barrage of antimatter torpedoes. The dreadnought shuddered as Hunter returned fire, lances of coherent energy slicing through the Nexus's shields. He allowed himself a grim smile as the enemy ship's engines sputtered and died. "Target disabled," he reported, initiating boarding sequence. Hours later, Hunter stood in the command center of Earth's orbital defense platform, his face illuminated by the holographic display of Dr. Sorensen's latest findings. Supreme Commander Riggs paced the room, her brow furrowed in concentration. "The data we extracted from the Nexus is troubling," Sorensen began, her voice tight. "It seems the Ravagers were more afraid of something else than they were of us." Riggs paused, her eyes narrowing. What could possibly frighten a race of killer machines? Sorensen's fingers flew across her datapad, bringing up a series of complex star charts. There are references to a lost progenitor race in the galactic core, and something called a metacatalyst, a device of unimaginable power. Hunter leaned forward, studying the charts. "You're not seriously suggesting we go chasing fairy tales, are you? We need to focus on rebuilding our defenses." "This isn't just about defense anymore, General," Riggs countered. "If we can harness this technology, we might be able to end the Ravager threat once and for all." Their debate was interrupted by a priority alert. Emperor Kolteth's mandibles clicked furiously as his image materialized in the center of the room. "Humans," he hissed, his compound eyes gleaming with terrifying rage. "Your arrogance knows no bounds. The Nigean Empire will no longer be subject to your whims." Before anyone could respond, the transmission cut out. Alarms blared throughout the station as reports flooded in of Nigean warships mobilizing across the frontier. "They're making a break for it," Hunter growled, already moving towards the exit. "I'll scramble the mech core." "No," Riggs commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We can't risk full-scale war. Not now." Hunter's fists clenched at his sides, but he nodded stiffly. They watched in stunned silence as the Nigean fleet engaged in a series of lightning raids, overwhelming Earth's frontier shipyards and seizing vital precursor weaponry. In the debris field of a shattered orbital colony, Hunter's mechs clashed with Kolteth's disruptor-armed capital ships. Despite their valiant efforts, the human forces were overwhelmed, forced to retreat in the face of the Nigean onslaught. As the last of Kolteth's war fleet vanished into uncharted space, an uneasy quiet settled over the command center. Riggs turned to Sorensen, her expression grave. "Prep your expedition," she ordered. "We leave for the galactic core immediately. Whatever this metacatalyst is, we need to find it before Kolteth does." Hunter watched as the massive precursor dreadnoughts of Earth's task force assembled in high orbit. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to open Pandora's box. As he boarded his command ship, he took one last look at the blue marble of Earth below. "I hope you know what you're doing," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. The fleet's engines flared to life, propelling them towards the heart of the galaxy and into the unknown.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.